Hello, my name's Lorcan Archer, and you're very welcome to the Metal Ireland podcast. This week's special show is brought to you in association with JD Metal Promotions. They're bringing the very formidable German thrash metal group Hatred to Ireland with a headlining tour in March. They're going to hit the Roisin Dubh in Galway on March 12th, Fibbers in Dublin on Friday, March 13th, and the Limelight 2 in Belfast on Saturday, March 14th. They're going to be ably supported on those dates by our very own Cypher, so make sure to check out one of those gigs for your metal fix in mid-March. Now, this episode of the podcast, we're featuring a very special record that is unique amongst the black metal pantheon of the 1990s. It's nothing short of a gem, really, released by the hallowed Misanthropy Records and recorded 20 years ago this month. It is, of course, the ethereal debut of In the Woods. It is Heart of the Ages. Blending black metal with evocative themes and more progressive rock elements, it was in many ways a visionary album. You can hear how the young band from Kristiansand in Norway crafted a record that really helped pave the way for black metal to evolve. I'm going to be speaking to In the Woods drummer Anders Kobro on the genesis and recording of that special album. First off, though, a track from our album of the month. It is, of course, the evergreen and ever mean Napalm Death with Smash a Single Digit from their newest slab, Apex Predator. You're with the Metal Ireland podcast.
Yeah!
and that was Emptiness, with a cut from their Nothing But the Whole album from last year out on Dark Descent. It's a record that's being discussed on the Metal Ireland forum right now, and it's been growing heavily on me since I first got around to hearing it. Really good stuff there. We move on now to our interview with In the Woods drummer Anders Kobro, and I started things by asking about the current state of the group and how things are progressing now for the Christian Sand Band.
My week has been pretty much normal. Some work and rehearsals and, investing in recording gear. So I've kind of been running around and gathering the things we need for doing decent pre-productions and, yeah.
And that is because, of course, you guys are steadily rehearsing now, and activity is once again taking place in the Woods camp. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
How long now have you guys been regrouped and been back at it?
In a rehearsal / songwriting arrangement situation since October. We came to an agreement in May, but it wasn't like a spontaneous kind of decision to make. The band has been in my life since age 13 or maybe earlier, so it's been years and years because I felt that we left something undone. But, I've been busy with other bands and...
Yes, of course. I mean, the In the Woods story and your story is a lot bigger, and it surrounds a lot more of your past, I'm sure. Even though Heart of the Age was recorded 20 years ago, I mean, you've been constantly active with Carpathian Forest and with other groups right up until the present day. I mean, you haven't taken a break, as far as I understand. Is that correct?
That's more or less correct. I had a little, not voluntarily break, but I went through some serious surgeries that kind of put me on the sideline for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Not that I wasn't able to play though, but I didn't do the biggest festivals and stuff, so we had a replacement in Carpathian for those shows. When I was walking and jogging in the woods, because I had to, it was my left leg. So basically it was kind of a heavy surgery. That was in November 2 years ago. So it's, a little over 2 years ago.
Would you say you've made a full recovery, I hope, or?
By this time now, I can say yes.
Fantastic.
I can still feel it, but it's not in a agonizing pain hell I went through for the last 2.5 years, so to say. So it must be kind of funny to be in the audience seeing the drummer in Carpathian Forest jumping on stage on walk sticks. Mind over matter.
In terms of your reactivation, the reappearance of In the Woods as an active band, like you said, last year it began to take shape. While you were going through your rehabilitation and you were, getting your strength back and working through it, at that point in time, did you have time to reflect on In the Woods, and would it have been around then that you thought maybe it's time for reactivation, or has it always been your intention?
It's been an intention for many, many years. I can say that. It's not like that it's been possible to be doing this before now, in a way. Mm-hmm. And Oddvar's death, rest his soul, kind of was the main catalyst for me to do this, and with his biggest wish in mind, because he also wanted this more than anything. Mm-hmm. So what happened really was I had been thinking about this last 10, 12 years probably, that it was a shame to leave it like that because we had a lot more to offer, unrecorded material, etc., etc. But, it was the timing that was correct now. And I took the phone call to the Botero brothers and said, hi, can I take a visit with you guys in 10 minutes? I just want to propose something. And so I did. Yeah. It took me like 5-6 minutes, and they were totally convinced too. They haven't been lazy either, so to say. They've done their solo stuff and been working with different local musicians around, and Chris is what I can call a music making factory, over creative. Or How
have you been finding the return to playing together? And of course you've got Tommy as well on board, who's doing vocals.
That's correct.
How have things been going since you've been together again now?
Very, very good. We found this very, very nice place, studio rehearsal place. Now, within the last 3 months, we basically have the new album already.
Wow.
Of course, some small arrangements and polishing would take place. So we're starting recording the pre-productions now. So for us three though, me and the twins, it was like when we started playing together, it was 14 years since last time. It felt like 2 weeks.
I mean, the chemistry is still there.
Very much so. And, since we have been playing together since early age, we were just kids when we started out. It's something you don't forget. It's always there.
Take me back to that time when you guys did start to play together. Originally your first involvement with the twins would have been, way back in the early 1990s. How did you guys originally come together and decide that you wanted to create the music of In the Woods? How did you first actually encounter each other?
The first encounter I remember very good, actually. It was not far from where my mom lived. And I met them on the bridge, and they had extremely long hair. I was maybe 12 years old or 13. They're 1 year older than me. And they were wearing the same jackets and the same glasses and had their hair over their butt, so to say. So I was kind of fascinated by that. So, and we started talking music, and the whole night was just totally linked with music. At that time, they had their own band with some different. Short was actually with them back then. And then what happened was that I moved from that area. I first met them, if you know what I mean, and moved to the other end of the city. There I hooked up with some metal people too, eventually. They were older than me, but okay, I was hanging out with them, and the drummer in this band I looked up to let me borrow his drum kit, and I didn't have any band. And then the twins and Short were at the lookout for a new drummer and also a place to rehearse. And the friend of mine is called Yngve. He kind of arranged a meeting with me and them at their rehearsal room so they could come over there to try me out.
All right, at their place.
And since they were kind of a little ahead of me, kind of in technical ways and stuff like that, I was auditioning for quite a while, because I hadn't done double kick drums before or something. It was pretty funny, this. But suddenly the ice broke and I could do the double kicks like no tomorrow. And I kind of use it when I have to,
Okay, so this is the very foundations, yeah.
In this period was actually pre-Reincarnation. We had lots of names we went through and some different vocalists and stuff like that, and then we became Reincarnation.
What were the names pre-Reincarnation?
Oh, there was a lot of dorky names, if you ask me. Betrayal was one.
Okay.
I think it was in Astaroth too at one point.
Oh, okay.
And Bad Taste.
Bad Taste.
Yeah.
I love it.
But then we landed on Reincarnation for some reason, and that was the story about that was that me and Terje was in the phone with each other, with each our dictionaries. In the dictionary, like Norwegian English dictionary, it says carnation can mean the flower, but also putrefaction. So that's why it was like green putrefaction. That was a very death metal name, so we went for it.
I didn't realize that about green carnation.
It actually says in the dictionary, so it is not about the Oscar Wilde thing. We were like 13, 14, so we had no idea.
Yeah. It took you a little time to get up to their level, but soon you guys were playing music regularly together and starting to gig.
Yes.
So what was the scene like around the city at that time? Was it a very vibrant time for heavy metal?
Yeah, it was very alive, and it was friendly and healthy competition between the bands. But also the thing that was the guys that was in the bigger bands, so to say, that was battling each other. They were like a few years older than us.
Yeah.
So we were also always considered the underdogs, the ones that not reached up to their level or whatnot, you know. So we had to be happy if we were allowed to support them or something in gigs back then.
Do you remember in particular which bands you would have maybe cut your teeth and first played with the twins?
It was local acts, mostly thrash metal bands. One was Salem Slot, and it was a band called Conspiracy, which Stein Roger Sodal, the bass player from Reincarnation, and also going to do guitar for In the Woods now in the future.
Yeah, yeah.
And Björn Harstad, the Woods guitar player, their band.
But it was very much a local scene. Like, I mean,
Yeah, it's very, very, very local, and played like this youth clubs around in the suburbs and stuff like that. And it was actually shows going on which had 15 years of age or less,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So kids were able to go to shows too back then.
Things then, as you said, I mean, you improved and you guys got better. The decision then came to change the name to In the Woods and to change the project.
Yes, we did this demo with Reincarnation. This was in, I think it was in '92. Yeah, it was in '92. And after that recording,
Yeah.
we went separate ways. Short and singer quit the band, or what really happened is it's not that significant. But me and the Potato Brothers and decided to continue, but not doing the style we did with Reincarnation, and kind of went more into the blacker scene without having any influences from the second wave, so to say. So it was kind of a mutual happening going on.
And it was a sound that you guys produced that really wasn't being reflected in many other groups around in the area. At least that's what it sounds like to me, listening back to it 20
Yeah.
years later. But did you feel that you guys, when you started to make that type of music together and you'd become In the Woods, did you feel that you were maybe doing something that other people weren't doing?
To begin with, we kind of didn't know, or at the same time didn't care, if that makes any sense. What I can see now, which we didn't see then, is that of course those bands coming from that era is like more or less the same age, and we have more or less the same influences and background. Kind of makes sense. So for us, it was a mutual meeting point with Bathory, and 70s era with Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, and the rules that kind of existed back then. I don't know if I want to go into it, but you had the Black Circle in Oslo and all this stuff.
Yeah.
We kind of just put a big finger up in the air and said, fuck off. We do what we want. We won't let anyone else tell us to do this or that,
Yeah. So when you guys were hanging out, I mean, you could put on a Bathory record and that'd be cool, but then you could put on, 70s rock
Yes.
too, and Zeppelin and stuff.
Absolutely.
It's all good.
Weren't like a rule about have to listen to this and production had to be like that, and etc. etc. What I remember the most was actually the phone calls we received from, let's say, Offset or the Count Krishnok or whoever, like, oh, you're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do that. And it was more funny for us than anything.
It's funny to receive a phone call like that, I suppose.
Yeah, breaking the rules. But what we kind of kept to the basics was that you weren't allowed to call yourself black metal unless you had satanic lyrics or images.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we never kind of call ourselves black metal. But
Yeah. Some people ended up calling you that anyway.
yeah, so that was, well, when the Heart of the Ages was coming up for the release, we needed to find a name for this. And I think it says on the flyer something like dark symphomajestic bombastic pagan metal or something like that. It was
It's a good attempt.
yeah. it kind of worked. Pagan metal became a term after that, as far as I know.
Yeah, it did, of course. When you were recording the album, though, and of course, I mean, I've had the album for a long time, and I can see it's recorded in Star Studios.
Yes, that's
What
right.
sort? I mean, I'm not too familiar with it. Like, what was the surroundings that you actually put the album together in like?
Star Studio was a studio in a little small village on the western part of Norway, south of Stavanger. So this was let's say, a hole in the ground somewhere in a farming area. Uh, how we choose to go there, I'm not certain. I cannot remember.
Did you guys all just get in a car and drive out there?
Yes, it's not that far away. It's like a 3.5 hour drive. The reason we went there is because I don't think the possibilities to record in Christiansand back then was that good.
Hmm.
So this place had 24 track, good old analog studio, and
It just made sense.
yeah, it made sense. And it was a session. We went there, we lived there, and recorded, and did
Hmm.
everything in a session.
One of the more striking things I always find when I pull the album out and I look through it is the very you know, everyone talks about it when they talk about the album, but it's those very striking bonfire scenes where you guys are out and these black and white photographs.
Ah, yeah.
I'd be right in thinking, would those have been taken in the countryside around Star, or would it have been Kristiansand, or?
That picture is taken in a park uh, that's a little off the way in Kristiansand. It's a very beautiful park there. And the idea behind the picture was that, okay, we had early on the idea about being kind of an anti-image band
Yeah,
that included that the music would speak for itself, kind of. So what we did when the label and everybody demanded pictures, because before that we just sent pictures of trees and nature.
yeah, yeah.
We just invited a lot of friends to come and join us then. And we made this bonfire, and most of the people you see in the picture is actually not in the band.
Yeah,
Uh,
but it is very it's kind of an evocative image as well because it is almost the antithesis of the black metal guy, you know, posing on a cliff in a forest. This is just a bunch of people in normal clothes,
that's right.
just around a bonfire, you know.
Yes. So basically, you have the point right there. It's the opposite of things. We did some headlining shows and some festivals in Germany back in '95, I remember. And we had like Dimmy Borgir and Dark Funeral as supports, and they were full of image. This German came up to us like, he was pointing at those guys and said, "They full of image. You no image. Why?" So
But that was who you were back then,
yeah, it was important for us to let the music speak for itself instead of our faces in a way.
for sure.
Yeah.
When you were recording the music, and we know it took place over several months, it was in the dead of winter out there. You guys did actually set up camp, and as you said, you actually lived there in the studio and completely dedicated yourself to it.
Yes, that's true.
What was that like as an experience for you?
That was a very, very nice experience. We were young, we were very eager and dedicated to what we were doing. So at that time, it felt great. It wasn't comfortable or anything, with some mattresses on the floor and sleeping bags and so on and so on. Lots of coffee and playing music. That was the whole thing.
Right, and there was no. I mean, you're together in such close quarters, but you seem to have produced such an evocative album which conjures up such images. When you think of that time, like you said, primarily it's just good, happy memories you have from that period.
Yes, that's right. And also we didn't have any outside influences in mind when we did this, we just did our thing, and what happened would happen. Like also a rule we went by was that as long as we like it, it's okay. If one more person actually also like this, we would consider that as a bonus.
Yeah.
So if like we sold 2 albums, that would be a bonus for us as long as we were happy.
When you were actually recording it, and it's something that I've always wondered about when I looked at the album, you are credited yourself with the session woodwork. That's what it says in the liner for you.
Irritates me to this date.
That's it. Because I assume you're playing drums on the entire album as well, right?
And also, how to explain that in a... Okay, it started with, after the demo recording, I had a tendency to kind of get lazy, or it could happen. So for them to kind of give me the kick in the ass I needed was to threaten me a little bit about, we have another drummer on the side here, so...
Yeah.
And it was a little period, a summer of 92 or something. I was out a little bit, and they had this second-hand guy there, but, that didn't work out. So they came back fast, and, hey, please help us out. So for some reason, they put session woodwork on that album just to annoy me, I think. It was more or less just for a little finger in my nose, if you know what I mean.
I do, yeah. But I mean, there is, however, it must be pointed out, session woodwork. I mean, it's clearly there's woodwork and non-conventional drums that are being used on the record, and those were, of course, performed by you.
Yes, that would, yeah.
And how did you find using those particular instruments? I don't have a breakdown of what you did use, but
Woodwork is just referring to drumsticks. It's.
Okay, now I understand. I thought it was like a special instrument that you would play.
No.
No, they're literally just saying you were using.
Basically, like a sawmill kind of. Woodwork is referring to the drumsticks.
Like you said, you recorded the album and you put it together, and the decision, obviously, to release it on Misanthropy. Can you tell me about the connection that the band actually had to that, obviously very notable label? Did it just seem natural because Misanthropy were putting out so much good material at the time, or?
Good question. We didn't know anything about them actually at first. It was a lot of tape trading going on. We did this rehearsal tape first, before the demo, which also had avant-garde music, very interested, and also before Allset died, DSP.
Mm-hmm.
And initially we were supposed to sign to avant-garde music.
Oh, avant-garde, yes.
I remember. As far as I know, it was something with the mail, a letter that never came through or something. Which way it went, I'm not sure about, but I think we were waiting for Roberto Momorelli response back to us.
Yeah.
And that was the time of snail mail,
Yeah, the only real way.
And we were waiting for this for quite a while, and in the meantime, Misanthropy approached us with a better offer. And since the contract or whatever we were waiting for from Avantgarde never showed up, we signed with Misanthropy there. But this decision also was made by Yankee, not the singer. We were just, cool, we were young, and the only thing that matters for us was to get an album out there, It wasn't for everyone back then.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But you're saying if it wasn't for this piece of this postal mix-up, this album could have actually come out on Avantgarde, which are another excellent label at the time.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
But to this day, I don't know exactly what happened or how it happened.
It's one of those little quirks of fate. Yeah.
I had a few talks with Roberto during the years about this, and he's still upset about it, as far as I know.
Well, an album like this, it slips through your fingers like that.
Yeah, but this was actually before the recording, so nobody knew.
In terms of the record itself, do you listen to it yourself? Do you ever take it down off the shelf and just play it through, or do you revisit it, or?
Yeah, I do, occasionally. That's like a good diary, and yeah, I actually do, once in a while. And of course now, if we're going to play some of the songs live again, we need to memorize the the things we're going to do there as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But my answer here is yes. I'm not embarrassed of it to say it like that. So
Oh no, certainly not.
no,
Are you looking forward to playing things from the album again on the stage soon?
very much so. Yes, I've been waiting years for this. So
Hmm.
yes.
I have to say I'd be very much looking forward to hearing those tom fills, coming through again. Those are the first thing that always come to my mind when I think of the album. So I mean, things seem to be progressing quite fast for you guys now. Do you think you might be playing festivals in the summertime?
I think we are skipping this summer because I decided to wait till we have the new one released, and that will make the band also a lot more desirable for festivals, also for newer listeners, etc. So I have been kind of very much no to all the offers and approaches I've received
Hmm.
till now, and it's been a lot actually. So I've been very thorough about telling all the festivals thanks for the offer. Hopefully we can be considered in 2016 when the new album is out, because giving us 1 hour and 20 minutes changeover for a festival just to play some old songs over again, I don't think that would do us a favor
Right.
at this time. So what I'm looking at also that live shows for In the Woods is very much visual.
Sure.
So putting us up in a festival in the daylight, I'm not sure if that's going to do us a favor at all. Not unless it's done extremely professional with all the visuals there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would prefer to wait so we can have all these things in place
Yeah, I can imagine you're very cautious.
for sure.
Okay.
We might do one exclusive show this year. We have still not made on the decision 100%, but we are about 85% certain that we're probably going to do this.
Okay.
And it's a place that's also going to put everything up for us so we can have the show we want and we can play as long as we want and stuff like that.
Can you give me a hint?
Not yet.
I understand. I respect that. That's perfect.
Thank you.
So that's fantastic. Of course, a lot of people are going to be, when they see that the new In the Woods album will be coming out, they'll be returning to their old albums. The classics like Omnio and Heart of the Ages will be pulled down off the shelf. But do you have an idea of when the new one will actually be available?
Not specifically exact dates or anything, but I'm pretty sure we will be done with the recording and everything by this year. And when the masters and all is done from our side, the label will probably need 5 to 6 months. The carrot I put ahead of us at first was autumn 2015,
Hmm.
and I'm still having a small hope of that can happen, but it might be early 2016. That's depending on a label, and it's also like to release an album. It's wise to do it when it's not too many others coming out at the same time, and
Hmm.
the time of year is very significant and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like mostly telling interviewers or people that ask, I say when it's ready, because rushing things would not gain anything.
One final question that I wanted to ask you about the Heart of the Ages album. We have obviously the 20-year anniversary of it coming around now. When you look back over the 20 years since that first came out, do you feel that the music that was pioneered at that point by In the Woods has been reflected in other bands' music? I'm thinking in particular about perhaps groups like who've been very popular in the last few years, such as Wolves in the Throne Room and a lot of that kind of US based stuff. Do you ever notice personally there's an aesthetic there that would be similar between early In the Woods and those sorts of groups?
Uh, I can hear it here and there with some bands, yes, and also the bands that has the elements or something that can be reminded are very good to tell me if that's the case.
Yeah.
If you know, like for instance, Shining too. It's like they don't hide it or in vain. also a band from the place we live, and they're very honest about the influences and stuff like that. But it's not like I'm not searching for it or anything. And I just was told recently it was this band coming out now that do a cover of us. So I'm kind of interested in hearing that. I'm not kind of trying to search for similarities or anything. And truth is that very few bands actually have the exact same thing. But I know some bands in the press has been connected or something, but it's nothing I kind of use energy to think about. Or it's flattering, of course, but of course, if we have made an influence here and there, I just take that as a compliment.
There's one other thing I wanted to ask you. When the album came out, there was touring that took place afterwards in Europe.
Yes.
And there was the tour that In the Woods did with Catatonia.
That's correct. Yes, Autumn Wilderness tour.
You would have performed on that.
Yeah.
I have an old ticket stub from when In the Woods and Catatonia played in Dublin on the 29th of November in 1996. I don't know what your recollections of it is, but that show with VOD and Catatonia went down in kind of Irish metal history as one of the very first proper underground gigs in the 1990s. Do you have any memories from that? Any recollections?
I had a blast. And also a good memory was that I was sitting on the floor behind the risers, so I was looking at the other guys' asses. Because the place we played at there wasn't a venue, or I don't know how, it was the second floor.
Yeah, it was a place called Charlie's.
And they had this stage riser, but it was no place for the drum kit. So the drum kit was placed on the floor beneath. And that was kind of strange, but it worked somehow. So I never saw the audience when we played.
You didn't see anything.
I knew it was packed and all, and the feedback we got later on was good. So I assumed we had done our job and all that. And I also heard later on that it went down in history as a pioneer underground metal thing, which made the promoters and agencies also realize that it was worthwhile sending tours over to Dublin.
Yeah, that gig is a very special place in Dublin's metal history for sure. But your entire memories of that tour, enjoyable?
Absolutely. It was a great 3 weeks tour, and we got along with the other bands very, very good. And yeah, that was extremely good.
And what other way to conclude that feature than with a track from Heart of the Ages itself? This is the title track. You've been listening to the Metal Ireland podcast. We return in 2 weeks. Until then, all the best.